Okay, this week we're continuing our work in Chapter 15, and we're going to work on the second set of exercises. And this is a listing of the exercises here. Always keep in mind that the even-numbered ones are available from the publisher's website if you are so inclined to go check. You do need that access code from the book to get there. But if you actually do look at those, what I recommend that you do is actually try to work on it and then go look. And I assign those on purpose. I kind of have a little bit of a safety net there, basically. All right, 15-9 or 15.9 in our book. I'm going to just bump that up in size ever so slightly. It says, draw lines using the arrow keys. Write a program that draws line segments using the arrow keys. The line starts from the center of the pane and draws toward the east, north, west, or south when the right, up, left, or down arrow keys are pressed. All right, so what we're hoping is that you see something that looks like this when you're all done. Okay, so you're going to press the key and then the line's going to grow. One thing that you'll probably notice right away is that we're certainly not moving one pixel at a time, right? So that's going to be one little tip that you should be aware of. We're going to have to think about, of course, what we're going to do in terms of what type of structure we're going to put it into. And my thought right off the bat is, since we're really kind of working in a big wide open area, you just go with a pane. And hopefully that becomes obvious for you. And I know those things aren't necessarily easy to remember, especially when you're starting out. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new Java project here. Let's call it Chapter 15. And then inside that folder there, I'm going to go ahead and create a new class file. And I think our pattern has been exercise 15_9. Let's throw in that main method. And then let's take care of all the standard little things that we do here. In fact, if I was smart, I would just copy them from a different program, right? Why reinvent the wheel? And, this stuff here is going to be used for sure. So let's just copy paste it in. Of course, that's going to need a closing curly bracket. Oh yeah, that's like throwing an error. Doesn't like that. How do I resolve that again, you guys? Is that right? Should I remove the override? No. What should I do? All right. All right. Now I'm doing a copy paste, mind you, right? Do I need the throws exception part? Not really. Still didn't fix it. But there is a data type here. Well, no, we have the import. Ah. Okay. And, it'll become more automatic for you over time. And, for all I know, maybe it won't. All right, so now those underlines should go away. May as well also type in the launch thing here, right? What should I put? Launch, args. Is that good? That's fine. All right, so we got that stuff out of the way. The other thing that we very commonly do is we're pretty much always doing this. Of course, we're going to adjust it for what we're doing, but that's typically at the bottom of the start method. And it is preset to read a pane in, and I think I already mentioned that I think a pane is a good mechanism to use here because it's a big wide open area, and since we're going to be arrowing around and creating lines, that's probably smart. And actually 500 by 500 would probably work just fine too. So given the fact that I've kind of already decided that I'm going to use a pane, I may as well instantiate one. So let's create a pane called pane, and it will be a new pane. And of course, let's bring in that library. That's a control space I'm doing there right after the word pane. All right. Now we clearly are going to have to use some sort of an event handler. That's kind of the whole point of this chapter anyhow. If you remember from the readings, and hopefully you watch the videos to watch some of the examples, the general form of doing an event handler kind of falls into this fashion, right? So you'll do a get code, and you'll do an equivalent, and then you pick whatever key it's going to be. Now I know this isn't accurate code right now, but I'm just trying to get the event handler part of it going. And in the book they show you a few different ways to do event handlers, and as they filter through those, you discover the various approaches they've used over time and how they simplify it. And thank goodness now they're using the Lambda expressions, which really makes our lives easy. It makes it so easy to remember what you're doing. So that's going to be a part of it, and one of the keys to this is the key code that we're going to use for particular things. Now these are not things that you necessarily would memorize, so you probably would look them up, although the book does indicate these in the readings. But if you didn't know, you would just basically start reading through and going, oh, well, how do I get a code from the up arrow key? The key code for it is up. So you guys might think, I'm like, well, why are you starting here, right? And why am I putting an E in front? Well, that basically is going to refer to the Lambda expression is really what it's kind of doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, since I've already got the pane, I'm going to run this little command here. So set on key. I'm hoping for a little auto typing here, but it's not doing it for me. Let's try that again. There we go. And what do you suppose on key released? Maybe key pressed? What do you think? Because if we press the key, that's what we want it to do. And here's where we're going to throw in our argument, and the part that you should be learning now is we should be diving directly to our Lambda expression, and the Lambda expression is set like this. And then that Lambda expression is going to trigger a whole block of code, of which this will be inside of it. Okay, I know that this is not syntactically correct quite yet, and it's throwing errors for us, but we do know that we're going to do something with this Lambda expression, and you see that Eclipse automatically closed this for me. That's not what I wanted. I closed it in the wrong spot to boot, but we are going to have a closing curly brace at some point, and the closing parenthesis and semicolon. So really what's happening is the set on key pressed, the arguments for it are the Lambda expression, the event handler, and then what are we doing with that in particular? So the first thing that we should know is that if we're going to do one for up, there's probably a left, right, and down, right? It's a pretty safe assumption to make. All right. Now the question is, if I write some code that reacts to me pressing the key, should probably be in a conditional statement, don't you think? Because it should only trigger if I press the up key. Make sense? We don't just want it to execute. I mean, it's got to react to some sort of an event. The event that we're reacting to isn't a mouse click. It is a key press. Yes. No. You didn't need a conditional statement for those because basically the button is sitting there waiting. Okay, the question was, for those watching the video, is on a previous one, we created 4 buttons, and then those buttons basically sit there and wait for the event to happen. And then when you click on that button, there's an event attached to it. It's not quite the same thing because you're performing an action on the screen. Because I could press any key on the keyboard, but we're looking for up, down, left, and right. Right. So it attaches to it just a little bit differently. So watch what I'm going to do here, and once you see the very first one, then everything else is going to fall into place. I'm actually going to write an if statement that's going to contain this as the condition. So we're checking to see if the person pressed the up arrow key. Now notice that it's not liking the key code. I'm going to give it that control space thing, and you can see that it is expecting this library here, JavaFX scene input. So let's add that one. And then since we're doing an if statement, it's also expecting that there's going to be some expressions that follow. So I'm just dropping in the curly braces right away. Now, here's our challenge. We need to write code that's going to create a line. When you create a line and you use, you can instantiate a line, right? Well, in fact, one way you can instantiate a line is you just say new line. Of course, it's going to flag this too. And then there's going to be a set of parameters that follow. But because this is not included in our imports quite yet, it's not showing us what all the parameters are, or the arguments that we can pass. So I'm going to add the library, and then even though I've typed it, see, I'm trying to invoke that auto type feature, okay, so it just doesn't want to cooperate with me. But it accepts a different number of parameters depending on what you're doing. The question is, what are those parameters? So you can see I hovered over it. It brought up this box. I'm expanding the box, right? It doesn't really tell me much, does it? It says line, public line, creates an empty instance of line. Well, thank you. Yes, it does. So how do I get more information? Have you guys played with these features yet in Eclipse? Well, if you come down here, you see there's these little icons. It says show in Java doc view, open declaration, open attach Java doc in browser. So it really gives you a couple different ways to pull in information. Now, if I click this first option, watch what it does. It actually opens up, well, that's not very helpful. Is it? It's not very helpful at all. It's not giving me any more information. So really what I'm discovering here is that we're kind of missing something. How do I find out what those parameters are? Oh wait, I clicked the browser one, right? So all this one did is it opened up the same thing I was getting when I hovered. So when I hovered, I got that little box. It didn't say a whole lot of much. But when I clicked this one, it actually brought up a window here, and really what it is, it's a browser feed. It's just pulling an HTML page. And the parameters or arguments that you pass in are the starting x and y and the ending x and y. That makes sense for a line, right? All right. So how do we figure out where the center of our screen is. Well, it should be pretty easy, right? Because we already set up parameters for the pane. We made it 500 by 500. You know, it's fairly large. So if we were to start in the center, where would we start? 250, 250. Now what I'm going to do to make things kind of work easily is I'm going to create a couple of variables, and I'm actually going to make them global. So I'm going to create them as privates. It can be a double. I guess it could be an integer too, but I guess I just favor doubles in general. And we said 250, and then we'll do the same thing with the y. So we preset two variables, x and y, and then knowing that this accepts 4 different arguments, the first two can be, well, starting x and starting y, right? Okay. And then we need to make it go a certain direction when we press the key. All right, so if we're positioned, let's say this is our pane here, and we're right in the middle, and I hit the up key, what's happening direction-wise? X goes across and Y goes up and down. 0 for Y is at the top, 0 for X is at the left. So when I press the up key, what direction should Y go? It'll actually move in a negative direction, right? Sure, because if the top is 0, this is the 0, 0 point up in the corner. So Y goes up and down, X goes left and right. So 0 for Y is at the top, and then the number grows. So if I'm in the middle of the screen and I want to move up, I have to subtract or move in a negative direction. So for example, the X wouldn't change, right? Because I'm moving up. It'll stay right where it's at. And then the ending position for Y will be some arbitrary amount of pixels. Chris says 10. I like that very much. It's exactly what I was thinking. I planted that thought in your head. All right. So if we press the up key, up arrow, the line will start where it's at and then go up 10 pixels. Now here's the trick. If you look at this diagram, it looks like wherever it is that they're starting from, you press the key and you move, right? Well, here's probably a better spot. You press the key and let's say you move up. Then when you press it again, it takes this position and sets it as the new XY spot, right? So if we're moving up, the X is still going to stay the same. The Y is going to move. So what we need to do is not only move the line, or draw the line actually, we also need to reset Y to its new ending position. Make sense? So we can do that pretty simply. We can just say Y equals, actually we could probably actually do this, Y minus equals 10. So whatever Y was, we're subtracting 10 from it, putting it back into Y. So if Y was at 250 and we press the up key, the line is drawn from the original 250 up to 240. And now that's going to be our new Y starting point. So that's why I'm doing a minus equals 10. You know, if you want to give it a size and a color, go for it. I was just going to make a line. All right, we're not ready for that yet. You're already trying it and running it and seeing what it does. Okay, there's a piece we're missing that we're going to talk about in just a second. So what I was trying to do is kind of build the logic for it. But since you're kind of pushing us in that direction, well, there's a couple of reasons why. So we have a pane. We're doing stuff on the pane. We have the stage and the scene all set. What is the thing that we're missing that gets it on the screen? Yeah, get children, right? So at some point we have to do the, I'm putting it here temporarily. I'm not saying it's the right spot. We do pain, get children, right? And then usually we do an add, and then we put stuff inside of it, right? Well, when we're drawing the line, maybe it would be really advantageous to actually just wrap that right around the new line that we're creating. How about that for a thought? That's not one that you probably were thinking about. Because really the opportune time to draw the line is right when the key is pressed. So Chris, if you're trying to run it and you're at the same point that I am, try running it now and see if it does anything. Yeah, so, I mean, this part is stuff that we've done before. Pain, we get children, and then we add or we add all, right? That's what we usually do. But what we're adding at this point is a new line, starting point, ending point, then we change the value of y to get our new starting point. But every time we press the key, we're making a new line, so it actually makes sense, right? Still does nothing. There's still something we're missing. So, set not. All right, I know that as you guys are doing your readings on this, so I mean, this is kind of turning into a mini lecture here. When you're working with a form field, for example, and you're entering in data, when you're typing in that field gets focus, right? And that's how it can react. The problem here is that we're pressing a key, but what is it locked onto? Do you see what I'm saying here? So there's actually something that we need to do before the key is pressed, and that is we do a pane, set, focus, traversable, and we say true. So now what's happening, just conceptually, is we're taking the whole pane and making it have the focus so that it responds to the key press. If we were in a form and I took my mouse and I clicked into the form field, that field has focus. When I click on a button, it automatically grabs focus. A pane doesn't do that by its very nature. So I do this so that the pane can get the focus. All right, that's kind of a weird piece. Try it now, Chris. Does it do anything? Yeah, there you go. At the end of the scene, you mean down here? No. Nope. Not at all. All right. Believe it or not, you guys, most of the hard work's already done. All right? We figured out how to make the line go up. In fact, I'll run it. This is very exciting. There is a dot in the middle of the screen, I think. Or is that a speck? I guess that's a speck. I hit my up arrow. Uh-oh. Yours works and mine doesn't? Oh. All that stroke stuff. All right, so Okay, so Chris is racing ahead of me here. Because usually, you know, my teaching technique usually is, why doesn't it work? Well, hey guys, this is why. Chris, very good. That's what you're supposed to do. Who would have thought it? You pay $200 for a book, you may as well read it, right? Any book I'm paying $200 for, I'm going to try to read cover to cover. All right. So if you read this, Chris, can you tell me what this does? Okay. All right, so it's example 15.8. All right, so I'm going to run this again. So you're telling me now it's going to work. Oh boy. This is better than Minecraft. Yeah, Minecraft was written in Java. All right, so we have this statement here which allows it to grab focus, and more importantly, notice the last part of it, it says traversable. And you guys need to get in the habit of doing this in this program in particular, because it gives you information. Set focus traversable, it shows you how to use it, specifies whether this node should be part of a focus traversable cycle. When this property is true, focus can be moved to this node and from this node using regular focus traversal keys. All right, so et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the information that's provided here is important. But notice at the very bottom of it what it says. When a scene is created, the system gives focus to a node whose focus traversable variable is true. So in other words, we start the program, it looks for that focus traversable, and it becomes true. And that is eligible to receive the focus. That doesn't mean it has the focus. It's eligible to receive focus, where it normally wouldn't. Unless the focus had been set explicitly via a call to request focus. And that's what we're doing at the very bottom. So we render all this code. We show the stage, the scene, the pane, and all that stuff. And after that's all loaded, then we set the focus to the pane. You see how that works? This enables it to have focus. This one flips the switch and turns it on, so it does. So really, I mean, if you think about it, if that's a method that turns the focus to any particular object, that can be applied to just about anything. The question was? Yes. Well, you could try it before, but the reason it would have to be underneath, well, actually it has to be underneath it, yeah. I'm just like thinking through it in my head, because how can you give focus to something that isn't on the screen yet? Okay. All right, I'm actually going to pause because I see you guys have. All right, let's move on. We have, clearly we have the hard work done. Now we just need to create the motions for the other directions. I'm just going to do a simple else if because I'm looking at my sample code from before, and that's what I did. So I'm going to be copying the same stuff that we've done above. So I'm going to do a git code. I suppose you could just do a copy paste here if you want. And we're going to do key code down. With some curlies. I think we can probably just copy this verbatim. Because really, we are still, if we're going down, we're still moving in the y direction. So instead of minus 10, we will plus 10. And then instead of minus equals, plus equals. And then we'll do another else if. In this case, we'll do left and right. I'm not going to be moving the y direction. I'm going to be moving the x direction. So if I'm moving left, do I go minus or plus? If I'm moving left, do I go negative or positive? Yeah. Negative. Right? Think about it like this. This side is 0. We're here. We're at 250. Minus 10 to go to 240. All right. Like backwards of what you're thinking, really. All right, and then here we're changing the x, and that's going to be minus equals. And we'll copy all this again. Switch it to right. That, of course, now you can see the pattern. That's a plus. That's a plus. Let's save it. Now I have if, else if, else if, else if. I could have done a case statement here, no problem. Might have even been better. Do I need an else to close it out? No. Did I really have to do else if? No. I could have done if, right? Any one of those scenarios would work. The bottom line is if it works, it works. And pretty much I don't think we need to do anything else here. Let's save it, and let's go ahead and hit the old play button here. Let's do something fun. Ooh, that's cool. Now I'm hitting the keys like... I'm not even trying to make it cool, and it's cool. It's like Etch-a-Sketch gone wild. Except that Etch-a-Sketch, you can make a smooth angle line if you're really good with the turn knob. So, okay, so if you want, you could do something challenging. We can make a hangman with this. All right, success. Can we call that a success? All right. All right, so that completes 15.9. The next one here is 15.18, but remember that solution's provided by the author at the website. I might have a pre-recorded video for it that I'll release if I have it. Otherwise, we're going to move on to 15.27. And let's go over to the book. 15.27, we're really skipping ahead here quite a bit. So this one here is called Control a Moving Text. Write a program that displays a moving text. I think that's kind of an odd way to phrase it, honestly. As shown in figure 15.3a and b. So basically, you bring up the program and that is scrolling across the screen. It's very exciting. The text moves from left to right circularly. So what that means is when it disappears in the right, it reappears from the left. Right? It disappears and it comes right back. The text freezes when the mouse is pressed, and then moves again when the button is released. So how many actions are we really responding to? How many event handlers do we need? Press the mouse key, release the mouse key, right? That's it. All right, that's all we need for the program. I think creating the text part of it should be a relatively easy thing. So let's jump over to Eclipse and build the skeleton for the program here. So I'm going to, once again, create a new class file. This will be exercise 15.27, was it? Got the main method in there. Let's borrow from our previously existing work and throw that in. We are going to extend the application. Control space to pull up the imports. We're going to copy some stuff once again from here and get the initial part of it at least. Here's our closing curly bracket. Keep hitting that Alt tab when I mean not to. What else can we steal from here? How about this stuff? All right, now we'll change this number here to 27. I don't know if that we're going to be using a pane necessarily in one of the size, or who knows, maybe we will. I don't know if that's necessary. All right, let's go ahead and just save it. And let's start doing a little bit of thinking here in terms of how we're going to approach this. All right, so the conversation that we're having here now is what type of a shape or object are we putting it into? And the first thing I threw out was an H box. That would work just fine. We already have pane sitting here, so my inclination, and usually one of my favorites to use, is pane, so let's just do that again. Judging from the way the exercise looks here, I don't think we need a very big one. Can we agree on that? So anybody suggest a size here? 200 by 100 sounds excellent to me. And I would have probably picked something very close to that. All right, once again, we need to bring the library in, control space, bring out the layout library. Everybody's okay so far? All right, so we created a pane, but we also need some text, right? We got to put those words somewhere, so let's create text. Can we call it text? I got asked today, I was teaching a different class, and it's like, why do they name it the same thing that it is? Well, we're not, in this case, we're going to have so little stuff on the page anyhow, but if I had 20 pieces of text, I might say title text, description text, something like that. So you come up with little methods that work for you. Once again, we need to bring in the import. This time, instead of control space, I'm hovering. And could we actually pass some parameters to it? Could I actually put in the string that we're going to use? Yeah, why not? In the book, they say programming is fun. Do we want to say something else? Programming is really fun. All right. Are there any other parameters we can pass to it? Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. The suggestion here was positioning. So I know that the positioning elements come into play. Well, I know where they go because I use this, but I guess I'll just go ahead and do it. What kind of position should we use if we are using a pane that's 200 wide by 100 tall? Maybe somewhere in the middle? 50. Right, but yeah, so what are you thinking? Okay, so somebody's saying if I use 20 by 20 and 50, it'll start on the left edge. Now this is your experience, obviously. You've done this already? Or you're guessing? So why 20 and 50 and not 30 and 80? $50 is halfway up and down. Yeah, that's the Y. And 20 just brings it off the edge of the pane. So okay, so this is Chris's logic. So you used what again? 20, comma 50. You know, the worst thing, of course, that's going to happen is we'll just put different numbers in. Play with it, see what happens. All right. What else do we need to put on the screen? Anything? How fast it goes. All right. Now, really what we're dealing with now is we are working with animations, right? And when we work with animations, we start to work with a lot of the time aspects, right? And all the times are in milliseconds. All right, maybe we should do this. At this point, we have our pane. Maybe it would be kind of nice to actually get it on the screen. We could run it right now and see what it does, right? Now that is impressive. So we're 20 over and 50 down. I don't know if that's exactly in the middle, but it works. Do I want it off the screen? Well, that's clear. Okay, so the thought that John's putting forth here, for those that can't hear it in the video, is like, do we want to start off the screen and then have it scroll onto the screen? Well, you know what? I like that idea, but let's first work with it, see if we can get it to move. Then we can position it to our heart's content. All right, well, at least we got it up on the screen. All right, so in order for us to move something, and if you read the chapter, you should know that when you're moving something clearly in a very straight line, right, the path that it moves on, right, the path, that's the key word. So we're going to transition along a path. Okay, path transition. Now, a lot of this terminology really stems from the graphics world. Like any of you that have ever done any animation work at all or used Flash or any of those kind of tools, you'd be very familiar with doing a path transition. So basically what you do is it can be a line, but it can also be a shape, and then you can have your object follow that shape. But in order to follow the shape, we have to have the shape to begin with. Make sense? So really what we need to do here is, along with text, is we actually need to create a line. Because, I mean, we're pretty clear that we're doing it in a straight line, right? Now we know that line has a starting point and an ending point. Yes? Okay. Gosh, where's that starting point and ending point? Let me run this again. Comment out this line. And the reason I'm doing this is so I can see it visually and make a couple of predictions. So this is 200 wide. So if that's 200 wide, this is probably how wide, do you think? 150 at least, right? Or 140, something like that. So it goes off the edge of the screen. Do we have to have enough of a line off the edge of the screen to accommodate for it traveling that far? And then we also have to agree, when it runs, is it as soon as the letter falls off, or as soon as the whole line falls off before we redraw it? Do you see the conundrum I'm talking about here? So really what I'm looking at is, if this is so wide, that means that we probably off the edge of the screen need to come out to, I'm just visualizing it, about here. And we also have to come off this way, right? So as soon as it completely disappears on this side, so the end of it travels over. But where is that, you know, here's a trickier part. where is the positioning of this? Because we gave it a 20-50. 20 is clearly the left edge. 50 is the top corner, right? Or is it the bottom corner? It doesn't really matter much because we're moving across the X, thankfully. All right, so if I set this to 0.50, it would be here. If I wanted it to disappear off the left side of the screen, I would be negative something. I'm just looking at what I've done before. Okay. It's not what I would have guessed, but I'm thinking maybe like negative 140. That's kind of what I was guessing before. Okay, starting X and Y. So we already have our X, right? We used 50 before. So let's put in 50. No, that's our Y. Okay, sorry, that's our up and down. And then it needs to go from one spot to another. So if we're negative on this side, we stay along the same Y. And then for this to come off the edge, this position clearly is going to have to go to 200, right? Maybe even a little beyond that. No, okay, so you're adding to it. You're thinking 200's the edge, and we'll go out to 340. The tail end of it might, but it's the front end of it that counts. So I'm going to set it to like 220, 210, just a little past the edge of the screen. So 210, and then can we keep the Y the same? Probably. And I am going to uncomment this. All right, from your readings in the book, do I really need to style the line? Okay, you're saying no with some confidence. Why? It's just the path. We don't have to add it to the pane to make it visible. It's still there, and we're following it as a path, we're not displaying it. I mean, if you really wanted, I guess you could display it. You could add it as a child element and turn it white, so it wouldn't be seen. I mean, you can do that, I suppose. But it's not necessary. So it's a path that's, virtual, per se. All right, so now we actually have to create the path transition, and I know that if you guys read in your book, which I'm hoping you're doing, instead of just coding, this one I'm actually going to abbreviate. And I can pass some empty setup parameters there. Let's add the library for it. All right, so we're getting ourselves geared up here to move it. We need to set a path, right? Let's take care of that. And that's a command that goes with this, set path. And what are we setting it to? The line that we created. The other thing that we're going to do is what object are we going to do that with? And that's going to be the text. But the command for actually getting that to go is set node. And here we'll throw in text. See how it automatically recognizes what we're going to do. Did you notice so that I was auto-typing it? It also put pane in there as an option. So we could actually take the whole pane and move that around too. Just something to ponder. We also need to set a duration for the animation. Because everything that's animation based is always done in a timeline. So you have to have a certain amount of time it takes to execute. So if you were seeing this like scroll across the screen, 1001, 1002, 1003, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. So let's do, what is it, set duration, and in milliseconds, 4 seconds. All right. Oh, I didn't get my syntax right here. I always like it when it fills in the blanks for me. All right. The value also needs to be set using these keywords really to get it to operate correctly. Duration, oh no, not value, millis, and then 4,000. I think that's correct. It's not underlining too much stuff, so it must be okay. Once again, adding another library. Seems okay. All right. Now comes some of the more interesting stuff. This stuff really you'll probably only pick up from the readings. It's not something you're going to kind of like imagine on your own. So, given the fact I got an extra semicolon there, I'm just going to start typing it in. All right, so set orientation. Oh, I didn't type set, did I? Set orientation. Let's bring the library in. Right, okay, so it's asked me to fill in the rest of it. All right, let's just actually go ahead and start typing it in. Path, transition, and frankly, you're just going to get this from your reading, and that's really kind of all there is to it. And I think that's all I need. Yep, okay. Thank you for the color code. Other thing that we have to do with this animation is we also have to do the set cycle count. It's also something I'm hoping you read about. And so I could like set a timeline that's specific, or I could set one that just keeps going. So I'm going to lean towards keeps going. Indefinite is the one I want. And then also, finally, in order to get the animation to go, you do a method called play. No parameters in there, but that makes it start. Now, we still haven't done the mouse thing yet, right? Hypothetically, if I did this okay, I should be able to run it now, and it should kind of, at least we'll see what the positioning is and where it moves to, or if that even works. So go ahead and give it a save, and let's run it. Hey, not a bad guess. Oh, that was kind of weird. See what it does? It kind of slows down. Yeah, I need to make that bigger, right? All right, so what do you think I should set it to? 60. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's try it again. Seems like it slows down, doesn't it? Like it's putting on the brakes. All right. So let's make it 2 275 is the vote in the room. So you can see that this type of thing just takes a little bit of playing with it. Gosh, I'm almost thinking that this first number is too big. And you know what's interesting, I made it wider on purpose. What's interesting is when you do animation stuff and you see something come to kind of like a gradual stop, it's called easing. Where it's like, it's moving and then it built into it, must be like a default in Java, that as we come to the end of it, slow down a little bit. All right, let's play with this first number. My guess is let's make it 100. See if that's a little bit better. Seemed to work. All right, now read the instructions. When it disappears in the right, it reappears from the left. All right, when I look at this though, boom, it should appear now, right? All right, so the way I'm going to control that really is where it's starting. So this probably has to be a little smaller yet. Let's run it again. It's better. All right, 60. Ooh, that might have been maybe a little too much. Yeah, right? Because I can see the exclamation points when it's starting. So let's bring that up to 70. Somebody's yelling 75 here in the room. No, I can still see one of them. I guess 75 is a better choice. Should listen to my students. See, I still see it. But are you using 2 exclamation points? All right, I think I'm going to go up to 78. And that'll be the perfect amount. Still see it when it starts. All right, I'm going up to 85. One more time. I'm not going to mess with it anymore, I promise. That works for me. Okay? I'm not going to grade you on how perfectly it does that, but I'm just showing you that's kind of stuff you tweak and play with to get it just the way you want. All right, that is exciting. All right, but now we got to add the other part. This is the event handler part. We need to react to the mouse, right? All right. So, how do we do that? An if statement. Set on mouse pressed. And do we need to put that inside anything? You got it. Set on mouse. I see it. And then what are we going to throw in here? Our Lambda expression. Thank goodness. We're going to apply it to the path transition, and what are we going to tell the path transition to do? We press the key. Pause. Yes. Perfect. All right. And then we're going to copy the statement. And we know that we're going to play once we release it, right? So instead of on mouse pressed, it'll be on mouse released. Directly from your readings, right? Let's try it. See what happens. All right, it's working just fine. Pressing my mouse, releasing my mouse, press, release, press, right click, That works too. Success, folks. This is good. All right, I think we're at a logical spot for a break here, so I'm going to terminate the video, and we'll come back and do some more.